Welcome to Women on IT, Hack the Future. My name is Beata and today's PhD Positivity Hack delivered will be by our guest, Syeda Kauser, Inamdar. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my mojo. And empathy is critical when you are in the world of coding. In today's episode, we are going to learn the word of coding. Kauser, where in the world are you today?
Yeah, I'm in the SF Bay Area in Silicon Valley.
That's beautiful location as well as where I am at the moment, which is lovely, beautiful beach just behind me. And I'm attending a lovely conference organized by Arawak X tomorrow at 6 p.m. EST, which is midnight in CET, where our cohort is mainly based. But if you join the link, you can join us because it's a hybrid event with link to the video posted later on. So let's dive into the world of coding. The process of creating instructions for computers using different programming languages can be fascinating. With a long-standing misconception about the involvement of women in the world of information technology, an amazing woman on IT role model is joining us today and will be providing all those misconceptions wrong. Syeda Kauser Inamdar is a senior software engineer, whether in coding, public speaking, or coffee making. She's always striving for perfection. You can follow her on Instagram at Code Latte. This is how we met. She has been doing her part in empowering the community by giving multiple tech talks and participating in panels as well. Kauser will be sharing her expertise in the world of coding, particularly in infrastructure as code, which is called Terraform, DevOps, and continuous integration, continuous delivery, and how they are vital and relevant in technological advancements. Don't forget to ask your questions, whatever they might be. We can even give you feedback about the weather. So, Syeda, let's go to the basics. What is DevOps?
Yes, sounds good. Yeah, hey everyone. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. So what DevOps is, it's a way to combine people, processes, and technologies for us to deliver value to our customers faster. You can think of it as it's kind of like this overarching kind of like principle, and there's ways we implement it. So what it's like, okay, so you understand that it's for our customers, right? So let's talk about what is dev and ops, right? So dev stands for development, ops stands for IT operations. So what previously happened before is sometimes you would have like development teams do their own thing and then operation teams do their own thing, and those would work in silos. What DevOps does is that it combines the two so that you're having teams that are able to deliver value to customers faster, shorter release cycles, and overall helps for better code release cycles and maintainability. That's just kind of like a high level of what DevOps is.
Good. And how did you get into this DevOps world?
Yeah, so when I first started working after I graduated from college, I worked in an IT organization, and DevOps was actually like instilled in our practices where my team that I was on, we developed the code that we were working on, and we also took turns being, around the monitoring and being on call around it. So my first job out of college, I was more on the developer side than the operations side. And currently in my role right now, I do a mix of both, right? Where it's actually pretty exciting because not only are you developing the code, you have to also think about, okay, how can I monitor this? How can I operate this? What happens in an on-call situation? So I think it makes us better developers when we have to work with that mindset.
So you also make it better for you to understand what the struggles are for one role and the other, right?
Correct. Yes.
So what was that attracted you to that field?
Yeah, so I've always been interested in technology as a kid. And when I was little, I would watch like Tech Now, the tech news. My mom saw that I was interested in tech, would buy me tech gadgets. So I think naturally, naturally, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. But when I went to college, I went in as an electrical engineer. Then I switched a major a few times, and finally I ended up in computer science, which I love it ever since. And so what attracts me about computer science is around the problem solving and how you can literally like solve problem with code. And I just love how there's so many layers to it, right? You have like the system layer, the programming layer, and it's just always something new. So it always keeps things exciting.
It does feel though a little bit intimidating because you joined this field that is highly populated by men. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, I think what helped me is when I was in college, I did see like there's obviously a big, different gender difference, more males than females and everyone like that. So, but I think what helped me then is I think just having my own little community, like I made a few friends and then we all work and study together type thing. And I think I'm glad that overall my experience has been positive from that end. People are really collaborative, things like that. And I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes, yeah, we do see that we are outnumbered, but I think that it makes us, want to be more vocal and more out there. So that's what kind of keeps me going. And I'm happy that those that I work with are really collaborative and friendly and smart and everything. So I really like that.
That's cool. We've got Olga Vasina joining us, and wow, PhD from Nassau, Bahamas, and Silicon Valley. Sunny days indeed. Hello, Olga. Lovely to see you. So, Kauser, you sent me a couple of questions because I'm not really deep into technology. So, thank you very much for these. Let's dive back into the DevOps. There's many principles in DevOps around continuous integration, delivery, deployment. Can you explain to us what are these?
Yeah, of course. So DevOps is, you can think of it as a philosophy. So in order to implement that, you need the culture and you also need the tools and processes around that. So what some practices you can use to implement DevOps are multiple things. So as Beata, you just mentioned, continuous integration, continuous delivery. But before I talk about that, I'll take a step back and talk about a few other practices at a high level, and then I'll dive into that just so you have it out there. So the first thing you're going to want to have is version control. So if you've heard of Git, Git, it's a way to do version control. There's other ways of versioning your code. So what does that mean, right? So what that means is that you have, like, let's say you write let's try to like translate the domain. Let's say you write an essay, right? And you want to make a few tweaks. How do you know what the previous version was? You would have a version control system doing that. So you'd have that. Mm-hmm. So given that, what continuous integration and delivery, so there are ways to kind of implement DevOps in practice. So CI, continuous integration, is the practice of when developers merge their changes to the main branch, then it goes to a CI system, which does automated testing and runs a build against those changes. And once they pass, then it's officially merged to main. So this is implemented in so many ways. The main benefit of this is that developers can get out everyone else's changes without having to do a huge kind of like merge at the end of, like, let's say a sprint, which you could think of like 2 weeks worth of work, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the CI part. So the continuous delivery takes it the next step where, okay, let's say you merge your changes, your code changes to the main branch, it passes the testing. Continuous delivery, if you set it up, will deploy your changes to your staging and/or production environment. Let's talk about in terms of staging, right? So staging, for those of you who aren't familiar, it's basically a lighter weight replica of the production environment, where developers can test their changes in that production-like environment. And then the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment is that, so continuous delivery requires kind of like a human touch, okay, yes, now that change is passed through staging, now we can deploy, let's maybe every X days or weeks or whatever on a regular cadence to the production environment. Continuous deployment, it's basically, no human touch. The only way your changes will not go to production is if it fails an automatic testing suite. That's a high level. There's multiple things as part of it, but yeah.
So, say something goes wrong, then it goes to people, to humans to fix it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you can customize your workflow differently. It's like the deployment world is really big, but usually in most cases, a human will go ahead and check out what is the bug, what's the issue, go ahead and make fixes, and then push the fix.
Can you give us a live examples of how these work in example of products? What kind of products you were working on, or the most exciting products or projects, or so we can actually see how it's working.
Yeah. So I'll just give a super generic example. Let's just say you're pushing out a feature for a phone, right? Like for your app. Let's say you're pushing a feature for the app where you wanted to say "Hello World." So it's your first time, pushing that feature out. So what would happen is you push your code to the main branch. What would happen for CI, the CI server, is it's going to run tests like, is your app printing "Hello World"? What happens in an error? Is error handling appropriately taken into account, type thing. So once the test confirms yes, your app does print "Hello World," the continuous delivery part will move your testing to to a staging environment. So this is before the product is released to the customers. So it's still within, let's say, your company, your startup or whatever. And so then you can do some more testing there. And then finally, once it all works, then you can push the gate and say, okay, this can be promoted to production. And now customers can see your app, which says "Hello World." So that's just like a super high level of that end to end.
That's very simply put how you make a coffee, and that is whatever coffee kind of type you want, whether it's with syrup or with some frothy milk. You need to put some components to make it work, right?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
There you
I'm a huge
go.
coffee lover. I'm like, yes, coffee.
Totally. It's very simple like that. When you put it in a coffee perspective, with my coffee brand Hansa coffee that I used to have, it's very very easy and self-explanatory. So since you work in infrastructure automation, can you talk about what infrastructure as a code is?
Yes, exactly. So infrastructure as code is one of the components to support DevOps. What it basically does is that, so what happened before is, infrastructure teams would deploy to different systems and then they would have custom configurations. But eventually, sometimes people would do tweaks here and there to different systems, and maybe they weren't tracked, they were one-off. But as you know, one-off sometimes propagates to bigger issues, right? And so these, systems would become snowflakes where we don't know how it's configured, because it wasn't tracked. So what infrastructure as code is, it literally codifies infrastructure, definition and deployment. For example, provisioning, your networks, virtual machines, load balancers, things like that. And so basically what you do, for example, is you define kind of declarative, right? So you're saying, okay, I want one virtual machine with these specs, and then you submit it via a tool, Terraform, which I will dive into. And let's say Terraform will, talk to different cloud services or whichever one you configured it for, and then provision that that resource.
So Terraform talks to different servers, service, what?
Yes, so yeah, different services. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So one example is Terraform can talk to different, cloud providers, for example, like Azure, Microsoft Azure, and so Terraform is kind of like the command tool you can use, or you can use an automation. And so, like I said, right. So let's say you want to provision something in Microsoft Azure, you would write the specs for it, and then it will go ahead and do that for you. Or it'll submit it to the Microsoft Azure endpoint, and then Microsoft Azure will provision for you. So Terraform is like a like a gatekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
Additional, like if you want to do things in AWS or literally a lot of other things that out the Terraform offers great support around it. And just to know, we talked about versioning, right? So Terraform also provides the ability to version your resources and see like the updates around it. So
So each version is not colliding. So you update something, and then it's making sure that it's secure, safe, and is relating to the right outcomes.
correct, yeah. And so to give an example of how you run it, like let's say,
Yeah.
yeah, you write a file, you say, okay, I want to provision. Obviously, it's in Terraform is written in HCL, so it's this HashiCorp language. So, but I'm just saying the words, right? I want to
Yeah.
provision a virtual machine.
Yeah.
So what you're going to do is you're going to run Terraform plan, which will see it's a dry run, which essentially means that it shows you the output of what's going to happen without actually making the changes. So you can see, oh, is this what I expect? And then you can review the plan output. Sometimes it's going to fail because it knows, for example, wrong syntax or whatever, you know. So once Terraform plan passes, then you would run Terraform apply, which will actually do the provisioning. So that's just a few commands that, couple of the main commands that we use for it.
Mm. So we've got Erms Maga joining us, and she's got a questions. As DevOps, what are the programming languages should we know? Should we need to be an expert of those languages? Maybe what steps we should take to learn something that is relevant in the DevOps world?
Yeah, of course. So DevOps is a practice which can be applied on multiple domains, which means you can use multiple languages as part of it. So you can think of them as two separate things. I think for personally, with the language that I use the most is Python. So because it's based on your team, right? For example, let's say my team uses Python, then I would maybe not be, if I'm not an expert at Python, I'm going to learn to eventually know a lot about Python, which is what I've built up to right now, which I know a lot more about Python than I did before. But let's say you have a team which is working on, let's say JavaScript or HTML and things like that. You would need to know those languages for your team. So to answer your question, you would need to know the languages for your team or the project that you want to work on. And in terms of being an expert, it's like we're all experts we can be experts, right? But it's all about like it takes steps to get there, and also even if you're an expert, there's always more to learn, right? So don't worry, like you'll be okay. Gotta start somewhere.
That's very encouraging, Kauser. Thank you so much for these encouraging words. I'm sure Arms will appreciate that, because quite recently she made a comment on our Facebook page saying that she's very excited about learning new languages. So, and she thanks us. Thank you,
Thank
Arms,
you.
for your kind words. Kauser really appreciates that. So, I wanted to maybe dive a little bit into your personal life. Was there a coach or a mentor who was leading you and telling you, what languages you should go into, or, how to deepen your knowledge?
Yeah, definitely. So what really helped me early in my career is having a few different mentors in my first job, and I think that really helped me in terms of like, okay, I think in terms of the programming language, it was kind of like whatever the team was using, that's what I used. So I used Python. But what these few mentors helped me was around the mindset around, okay, this is how you test. These are some best practices. These are some books you can use and resources to write good code. First job, current job too, right? I think the mentors are really helpful, and they've really helped me level up my skills. And also now that I'm a mentor too, I've been a mentor for a few years now. I really like how, I encourage those that I'm mentoring to read certain books. I like tech books, soft skill books, communication books and things like that. So definitely mentors have helped a lot. And I'm happy to like pay it forward. So I'm glad that I'm continuing it.
Great. And we've got another question. In love and in pain, thank you so much. What inspires you to do coding? Maybe I can have the same inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm glad you asked the question. I feel like there you go. You have some inspiration. You're just gonna like tap into your potential.
Yeah.
As far as me to do coding, as I really love problem solving, I like the challenge of learning a new language. But when I say problem solving, what's interesting to me is someone can tell you, you know, solve this for me. There's so many ways of doing it. You know, you can look at design patterns, you have to know domain experience and things like that. But in terms of like just getting started coding, what I would recommend you do is understand like why do you want to start coding? You know, is it just because you want to learn? Is it because everyone else is doing it? So what I like to think about coding is it's a way for me to learn a new skill, and you just need a laptop pretty much and some tools on it. So to encourage you to start coding, I would recommend you could check out GitHub, you know, like Hello World you can look up GitHub Hello World projects, things like that. Because as you start building smaller and smaller projects just to build that momentum, then you'll get more confident and be excited about it. And maybe you won't be, which, you know, to be fair, it's fine. But from your question guides me that you coding something you want to look into, and I'm excited for your journey.
Well, I have to say, Kauser, that there are many females that I met on my journey, and they were just keen on getting there. But it's really difficult to know where to start or what resources. So I'm very grateful for these tools that you send us. I mean, these links that we are propagating now. Please make sure after the show to revise them and check them. So let's go to the GitHub Hello World projects. Tell us, what is that about?
Yeah. One of the ways that well, so when I say Hello World, it's basically like, and when you create a new project or learn a new programming language, you look at the Hello World projects, which are the beginner projects, and so the output of the beginner projects is to literally print, you know, Hello World in that new system. So when I mentioned GitHub Hello World projects, it's basically, you know, you can look at the source code for different code people have written, which prints Hello World in different languages and different frameworks and things like that. So that's what I was referring to.
Mm. Do you sometimes look back at what you created and do you go back to what you made or to see what was the mistakes you made, or you never look back and you just go forward and create new things?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge reflector. I love reflecting personally and professionally, and definitely along my coding journey. So I definitely have seen the code I've written back in college, you know, early on when I started my career and right now. And it's interesting to see the evolution. I think that it's important for us to reflect on that and be compassionate about ourselves, because although it's easy to say, oh, I didn't write that well back then, you know, you did the best you could, you know, and it was
Uh-huh.
the best in the moment. But it's also good to, I think having that experience of reflecting helps you mentor other people because you see where they're at and be compassionate as they're getting onboarded.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, be kind to yourself,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Good. So, what programming languages do you primarily use? You said you use Python and you use it because it's for work. Is there any programming language that you prefer using?
Yeah, I was to say Python. I love using Python a lot. I've been to PyCon, which is the Python conference, for a few years now. So that's just the main one that I like to talk about. I think I also have a few like books on my bookshelf right here about like Python best practices and things like that. So yeah.
Yay, good. And you also told me that a couple of years back you attended a Grace Hopper celebration, I
Yeah.
mean conference, right, in the Bahamas. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this conference was actually, so I attended Grace Hopper a few times. The first one was not in the Bahamas. Sorry if that wasn't. It was actually in Houston, Texas, and that was in
Oh, right.
2016. Yeah, and then I attended like a couple times after. And then last year, I was able to be a speaker at the virtual Grace Hopper conference where I spoke about code reviews. And so it was when I first went to Grace Hopper in 2016, it was such a life-changing experience because I met a lot of wonderful people, wonderful women in tech, and it got me inspired to want to be a technical speaker. Before I attended, I was always into public speaking, but that really solidified, oh, I wanted to be a technical speaker as well. And so that's why when I was able to talk last year about code reviews, I could probably send a link or something like The actual video is not published, but I can send you a link to the summary of what I talked about for code reviews. So
Yes,
yeah,
please.
okay.
Yes, sister, we want it.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yes. I'll give you the details. But it was one of my favorite experiences in life ever.
Fantastic. So let's just remind Grace Hopper was coined Amazing Grace because she's the woman behind the Kobo, and she also is behind the quotation that I really love: a ship in a port is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. So
Wow.
take your wings and take your ship and go into the sea. So, coming back to the word of coding, how do you stay on top of the tech trends or the changing world of coding, or how do you make sure that your code is secure?
Yeah, so multiple things. Yeah, so let's talk about how I first stay on top of tech trends. So there's so many tech trends. I feel it's super overwhelming. But what I do is that I subscribe to kind of this like daily news as part of TechCrunch in my daily inbox. I check every day or every few days or at lunch, you know, just to just get a highlight of the top things that are happening. I also like to periodically browse on Medium and just even I look up like latest tech trends, things like that. So that's like good to know what's happening across different industries. And in terms of the stuff I'm working on right now, what helps is, you know, when I was going to conferences, going to meetups to understand the latest and greatest in that current area that I'm in right now. For example, PyCon for Python, and then the Grace Hopper conference for just different technologies, and also just like word of mouth, right? I mean, just talking with my friends and other people that I know in the tech world. So yeah, I also asked about how do I keep coding secure. So security in coding is just such a huge area. I just think it's important to understand. I think I basically looked up like ways to keep your code safe and just kept taking different courses. And then also when I would go through code review, the reviewers would give me suggestions, you know, this is safe, this is not as safe to do. But it's like a whole new world out there. So what's important is to also write tests against your code. So you try to catch edge cases around it. So yeah.
Okay. So what is code review? Is that a secret, I don't know, meeting for some coding anonymous?
Yeah, it's not as a secret as that, but I guess it could be for some people. So code review is basically the process where before you have the main branch, which has the main code for your application. Let's say it's Hello World. Let's say you want to write a feature which says Hello World and your name, so Hello World Kauser. And then so before that feature is merged to the main branch, it goes through code review. So what usually happens is it's on a system. The code is put up for review, let's say using GitHub, and you tag the reviewers that you want to review your code, and they'll say, okay, is this feature they'll analyze it, right? They'll comment, is this feature needed? Does it follow best practices? Can it be clean? Why are you even adding this in? Different things like that. Once the reviewers and you have a consensus, you know, which says, okay, now we're ready to merge, then the code is merged to the main branch. So it helps with the code maintainability, just collaboration, and definitely it's a good practice. So everyone knows usually everyone will know what everyone's working on through the code review process.
Excellent. And just a question. I know that you're working with a team. How big is your team, and how many of you females are in the team? Do you feel alone?
Yeah, no, I don't feel alone. I feel very supported. I would have to count in my current sub team, but I think under 10. And I think in terms of the entire team, it's about 20. But the team is subjective because we have teams of teams. But I will say, no, I'm glad I have a lot of awesome females on my team, and females and everyone is super collaborative and friendly, and so I really love my team. So I'm glad that I don't feel alone in my current role.
That's fantastic. Good to know. It's good to see a career woman like yourself making it big. And I just wanted to ask you, who is your role model when it comes to coding?
Yeah. So I think my role model is actually my mom. I know you said coding, but I think just seeing the way, she worked hard to get to where she is today, and just also like that work ethic and the discipline. So that really motivated me. And in terms of and coding world role model, I would say I just have a lot. I mean, just the people that I've met through work, that I've met at conferences, the engineering managers and leaders that I look up to, and definitely the women in STEM that I've met on Codalati on my Instagram. The STEM community on Instagram is really big, and so it's just inspiring to see how many people are on there and how they're continuing to educate people about tech and share their journey and developer life. And so I'm happy that I'm part of that community as well.
Here is the code latte, just
Thank
to
you.
make sure that so many viewers of ours can follow you. So none of us are able to achieve things without the help along the way. Who helped you to get where you are, and who you're most grateful to?
Yeah, of course. I would say in this case, it would have to be, again, like my mom and a few of my really close friends. I think that definitely the mom inspiring me to, always encourage my dreams and support me. And then a few of my close friends where they just really, believed in me, and they, gave me advice, and they would help me be accountable. And I really like how they're always supporting me in my journey. And so that's why it means a lot that my mom, my sisters, and my really close friends, that they support me. So that means a lot.
That's really sweet to know that you're surrounded by supportive women. We've got another supportive woman joining us, Marianne Madera. Hello, Marianne. Have you tried a hackathon in your team? Do you think it is fun to have one? Do people have time to sleep in a hackathon? Oh my goodness, so many questions.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I did a few hackathons in college. I actually did a hackathon a few months ago in my team, with a few people from other different teams. I think, yeah, it's super fun it's super fun to try it. I mean, it's definitely challenging, and it definitely takes a lot in terms of, like, let's say it's a 24-hour hackathon. Like, do you even have time to sleep? Uh, the team one was not the sleeping issue one. The sleeping was more like in college when we had a 24-hour hackathon. I think I slept probably like 2 to 3 hours, and that's it. But I think it's super fun to participate. I think it really pushes you to the next level in terms of getting you out of your comfort zone and talking with different people. So even if you do a hackathon, virtually with people you haven't met, or you do in your team, I know that you're going to get a lot of good takeaways.
Lots of coffee then, right?
Oh yeah. Speaking of coffee, actually, now I'm drinking tea for my throat.
Well, you can still have a coffee after our
I will.
call. So I just wanted to continue on that journey. How do you say no during a hackathon? So let's say that you see that somebody's doing something wrong and you want to vocalize your concern. How was it for you, especially at the beginning of career when you were surrounded by people who coded more than you?
Yeah. I can't think of a specific example where Okay, so when you say wrong, do you mean in terms of like your team where?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I can talk about it kind of hypothetically in that sense, but but give my experience from, pushing back in the technical process, based on my current not like all my projects. So I think what's helped me is understand their perspective. Let's say they want to add a feature in, and you say you're pretty sure it's not neat, or they're going off the wrong track. Then I would ask them, why are you adding it? Just you're curious, and they would give the reasons why. Then what I would do is, then I would say, okay, well, you would talk about, like, what is the outcome, right? What is the business outcome, the hackathon outcome? The outcome is XYZ. I believe, because the outcome is XYZ, this feature doesn't seem to align with it. I have a proposal. Can we talk about it? And then just kind of talk about it that way. I mean, I know that this is kind of like a super high level response, but what helped me is I recently read the book Crucial Conversations. And so it's one of those like super life-changing books, which helps you in times like this, right? And around having such difficult conversations. But honestly, sometimes you're not going to get your way, and that's okay. But I think it's important that you should always try to vocalize when you can, just to get people's perspectives. And sometimes, yeah, you are going to be right, and then you'll go with your way. But
Mm,
it's just like it's a give and take, right? I mean, no one is 100% right all the time. It's about having a productive discussion.
mm. So, Crucial Conversations is a book by whom? Do you remember?
I have it next to me. Like Patterson, Graney.
Harry Patterson,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. For tools for talking, that's very interesting. We're gonna post it shortly so people know and see it. So speaking of books, what is the number one book you can reflect on and think, oh gosh, I wish I read it at the beginning of my career?
Oh yes, that would have to be How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I believe that's who wrote it. It's just one of those classic books. So on Code a Lot on Instagram, I talk about like developer tips, mindset, motivation, and coffee education. So I had a series where I was talking about the different technical and communication books that I read, and I also had on LinkedIn as well. So um, that book talks a lot about like active listening and communicating and influencing, and it's one of those books where you don't just read it end to end. You have to kind of like keep rereading it. Maybe you'll come back to certain sections based on your situation. And it's I like to gift it to my friends because it's super helpful. And I have it on a bookshelf, of course.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. So, what are some common challenges you face as a software engineer, Kauser?
Yeah, I'd say, let's see. I think the first thing is understanding scoping. So when you're given a request to do something, understanding the scope of it. What I mean by that is, um, how long is this feature going to take? Is this feature even needed? What stakeholders do I need to talk to? What's required to implement it? So understanding that. Um, Another challenge is definitely around just the troubleshooting a bug. So a bug essentially means, yeah, like, I mean, it's like something's not working, right? Let's say you want to print, your app wants to print hello world, but it's printing bye world. And then, that's a bug because, it's not supposed to do that.
Hmm.
Just troubleshooting around it. And so when I say troubleshooting, there could be multiple reasons why, right? You could have like, maybe it's literally a spelling issue, or it could be a system issue, just so many different layers to it.
Hmm.
And then finally, the third main challenge is definitely around communication, like I talked about. I think that when people think about software engineers or technical in the technical world, they think about the technical skills, the hard skills. But I think that working on your soft skills, communication, where you talk about your feature to different audiences based on their level, right? For example, the way you talk to your coworker who's an engineer about the feature would most likely be different than the way you talk to a director about it, because understanding the ways you talk to different people. So
Hmm.
this is the top three.
Absolutely. We've got a question from Lisette Soto. Kauser,
Mhm.
earlier you mentioned that you feel extremely supported in your current role. Have you ever experienced the opposite? If you did, how did you deal with it?
Yeah. I think I'm fortunate that I've been supported in both my roles. But I will say in college, there's times where I felt like maybe not my team, but just there are people that were unsupportive along my computer science journey. And so I think what helped me is trying to find people that I can confide in, about the situation. And but I would say, let's say, you're not feeling supported in your current role right now, or if anyone isn't feeling supported right now, it's like, what can you do about it, right? There's different ways to handle it. Could you talk to a different team member? Could you talk to a manager? Could you talk to someone on a different team? That's a work context. In terms of a school context, it's just, I think talking to maybe like a career advisor. But I think at the end of the day, what overall has helped me kind of push through people that are unsupportive is having people I can talk to and confide in, and having a mentor around it. But
Mm,
yeah.
It's definitely important question to ask because so many of us are facing microaggressions, and quite often we need that day or night to whip into the pillow, and but then you need to regain your strength and don't look back because you're not going that way. Thank you, Lisette, once again for sharing with us some of your concerns. I
Oh,
hope.
can I add one more thing?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I will also say that there's going to be times when people are going to just doubt you for what you are, and so I think what's important is understanding your strengths and what you have to offer to the table. And I think like some amount of doubt is okay, but I think at the end of the day, like the way that I was able to overcome a lot of this is understanding my strengths, and I think just speaking about it and also kind of documenting the journey, because we talked about how we reflect from our past, right? So as we document, like even journaling, this happened this way, and because I felt blah blah blah. So I think just writing it also helps. But yeah, you're right. Every day is a new day, and we have a fresh start.
Absolutely. You own that table, girl. There
Yes.
you go. Kauser, are you working on any exciting new project now? Can you share with us?
Well, I will say is, I guess work is pretty exciting, but although I can't really speak to the work projects, I will say I do love how I'm continuing to work with new technologies over there. In the coffee world, I guess I also have to talk about coffee. Exciting coffee project is learning a new latte art design. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
working on. Yeah, I'm also learning a new programming language called Go. I've been learning it for a while now, but I think that's exciting just to learn something new.
So, and you're doing it because you need to, or because you want to, or is it because you're doing something at work that involves this language?
Yeah. So I've seen Go a lot actually in different projects, and I just wanted to get a handle of it. And I think I also wanted to do work on it to see if I could work on it at work as well. So this Go is definitely an up and coming language. I think a lot of people use it for different things. So I just wanted to learn it as well. But obviously, I'm a lot more comfortable with Python than I am with Go. But one day.
Cool.
Yeah.
And again, going back to the resources, is it GitHub you're getting some resources from, or is there some community out there that we need to
Yeah,
know about?
so I like to use LinkedIn Learning for a lot of when I learn new things. So I took like I don't remember the exact name for the Go course, but it was a LinkedIn Learning Go course.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's great. Let's go into what advice would you give to other females to help their career?
Yeah. So I think this advice can taken for pretty much anyone. So I think it depends on the perspective, right? But I'll just say generically, I think, like I said, what helps me is I'm someone who likes to document my journey, like I said, both latte art, coffee education, and around my developer time. So I like to have like a weekly check-in or maybe even monthly or quarterly check-in about where I am about certain things. And just kind of write it out. I'm also super goal oriented. And so what will help, people in their careers understanding their goals, right? Like let's say their 3-month goal, 1 year, 3-year lifetime goals, and have check-ins to get yourself accountable. Was also helping me is sharing my goals with my close friends and my support system, my mentors, and kind of get their feedback on it. Also get feedback on where I am. I think it's
Hmm.
also really important to get that feedback. And also, we also have to keep in mind like everyone will have different feedback. But I think what's important is having a growth mindset, which I also emphasize on my account and just personally whenever I talk to anyone. So growth mindset being that no one is perfect, but you should be working on yourself and improving. And let's say something doesn't go your way, you still take it as a learning opportunity, and then you grow from there. So that's what I would suggest.
Hmm. So, and what are the top 5 skills of all career-driven females should have, in your opinion?
Yeah. So the first thing I think about is having effective communication. Communication is super big, but I'll just kind of keep it at that. Second is having leadership skills. You don't have to be a manager to be a leader, right? I mean, just in your role, what can you do? What can you show up and come to the table with? Next would be having good written like documentation skills. So, crafting emails, writing documents, and writing it for different kind of personas type thing. I think I'm trying to think of two more. Oh, active listening. We always like to talk. Maybe some people don't like to talk. That's fine. But being an active listener is really important. Finally, the fifth skill would be, I would say, when I said ability to lead, the fifth would be ability to influence, right? Those are slightly different things, but they're pretty much related, right? And so those are the five skills I believe are really important.
So, what do you think makes a perfect influencer? I mean, ability to influence is quite a hard one, right? We think influencer word is all these Instagram babes sitting on the beach sipping martini or something like that, right?
Yeah. Wait, sorry. When you say influencer, do you mean like in the business context or the Instagram context?
No, I think we are thinking about the same, which is business contact.
Okay.
Influencer now.
Yeah.
Rather, misconception of influencer word. But how do you actually influence your audience? I mean, how do you become a leader that has influence?
Yeah, and it's something that I'm continuing to work on as well. But like I said, what's helped me is at least having a foundation. So kind of reading the two books I talked about, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then reading the book Crucial Conversations. So what I found when I wanted to influence certain decisions and people for certain things is understanding my outcomes, my goal outcome of the situation, and understanding what their perspective is and like why do they want something, right? Because they could be pushing for something but not getting to the why they're pushing for and solving for that it'll make it harder to influence. I think just understanding their why. I think also the way you phrase things, right? It's like you can influence through force and might, or you can influence subtly. Everyone has different ways, and sometimes I've done both, right? I mean, we do different things based on the situation. But yeah, it's just a big world out there. I'm trying to figure it out too.
Oh, absolutely. And sometimes you just have to try because the worst thing that can happen, you hear no.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta try.
And try again. Fantastic. We are coming to the end of our show. If you have more questions for our lovely guest, Kauser, who's with us today, speaking from Silicon Valley, speak now. Kauser, I wanted to ask you because your name and surname sounds very Oriental. What is the story behind, please?
Yeah. My family, they're from India, and so I'm Indian, and so yeah. So Syeda is like a family name, and Kauser is like my name. But it's funny because I used to be called Syeda from college and before. So half my friends call me Syeda, and half my friends call me Kauser. So yeah, but yeah, you all can call me Kauser.
Kauser, Syeda, whatever the name you prefer, you definitely rock Silicon Valley. Were you brought up in America?
I was born and raised here, so yeah.
Great, and your parents?
Yeah, in India, and then they came over here.
So your parents made all the way to America for your better future.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Done. No wonder your mom is your role model. But let's imagine the pandemic is over, and who would you invite to have a private breakfast with, and where would you go to?
Ooh, yeah. So I would love to invite Michelle Obama. I've always looked up to her, and especially after I read her book Becoming last year. I finished reading it last year. Super strong, powerful, smart, and I would love to have a conversation with her. In terms of where, I would want to go to a cafe in Paris. Just, the views are nice and the food looks really good, and I've always wanted to travel there. So that's where I would choose.
Wow, that would be definitely closer than 8 hours flight for me. So we can definitely go and spend the weekend in Paris. I would join you, girl.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, any particular cafe in Paris, or you have not made your mind yet?
And no, there's just so many out there. All of
Right.
them. I don't know. You tell me some. I don't know.
Absolutely. I'll send a couple of
Perfect.
suggestions later on. But let's go into the life lesson quote. Is there any life lesson quote that leads you throughout your career or at this stage of life? Can you share it with us?
Yeah. So I'm not remembering the exact like wording of it, but I think at a just at a high level, I like everything happens for a reason. I mean that's just kind of like the motto since like forever, where people are gonna flow in and out, and situations are gonna test us. But I think what's important is like how we address those situations, and it like shows our resilience in overcoming them. So everything happens for a reason. It doesn't mean it's okay for bad things to happen, but it's just something that I understand. Like, okay, things are going to happen. It's just like, how do we, come back, or how do we address it and kind of like move forward?
Hmm. So you're joining us from Silicon Valley, the place where people are bragging about their fuck ups. What is your fuck up that you remember? You thought, oh, this is end of my career.
Trying to remember. I think, uh, granted, it's been a while, but I think I'm trying to remember if I pushed a bug or something. Yeah, so I pushed a feature, and I think it wasn't like that's as serious as other actual systems have been down, but I pushed a feature. I thought I had tested it thoroughly, and it turns out that it was it was provisioning something incorrectly, and the end user really needed that. And luckily, our team has a system in place where I was able to create the bug fix and then get it deployed to production. But it was stressful because I don't remember. I don't remember what it was exactly. No, I do now. But yeah, it was basically. Luckily, it didn't bring the system down, but it still was frustrating. When you thought, "Oh, I'm done with this," and then, "Oh, it turns out you're not." But I think like most software engineers, I think, have had situations like where they thought they pushed something that worked, but then there was a bug, and then you fix it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Look at Facebook last week.
exactly. There's so many things. every system, everyone. It's a badge of
So
honor if you do it. I don't know.
so
No
the
less for you to
system
test
went down, and how did you cope with that? Did you admit immediately, or did it took you a while
Oh
to?
yeah. I mean, I took ownership, right? I'm trying to remember how we figured that entire thing out, but I essentially like I took responsibility of that feature missing something, and then I fixed it, and then I pushed it. So yeah, I think taking ownership of what you're doing is super important. I think it also helps to have that culture, where as you take ownership, it shows, okay, yes, you're willing to take action, and then you fix it. So yeah.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of maturity as well.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to remind you about tomorrow's conference. If you would like to join us, it's tomorrow at 8 a.m. CET, which is no, so EST. So 8 a.m. EST, Aruac X Investor Ecosystem Conference, and then at midnight CET, which is 6 p.m. EST, is going to be me speaking about women empowerment. The links are going to be included in a second. And I just wanted to thank very much for joining us today Olga Vesina, Ernst Maga, In Love and in Pain, Marianne Madera, Lisette Soto. Thank you so much for all of your questions, contribution, and very insightful and thought-provoking questions. Tell people and they may forget, show them, they may remember, but involve them and they will understand. Confucius. You definitely understand the word of coding. Just the final word. Kauser, can you tell us how to encourage more girls into technology? Is there a secret sauce how you were encouraged to join this field?
Yeah, I think this is something that a lot of people are solving in different angles. I think at the foundation is it starts young, right? So what helped me was my mom noticed that I was interested in tech, and helped me join these different kind of tech clubs and things like that. So I think having outreach for people, for for girls in elementary school, middle school, high school, different levels, encouraging them to go to college in different tech fields, and once in college, have that support system around that. So yeah, I like how people are doing many different things, and I hope that it works out.
Definitely don't go into pink just because it's a girl. It's okay to let her play Barbie, but also think about ways how you can encourage different mindset, opening your mindset to Lego bricks. Recently, Lego admitted to have a rather biased view on who can play, and they are trying to fix it. So that's your opportunity. If you're a mother, if you're a father, make sure that your boy is learning the word of others and is not really only accustomed with cars, and the same applies to a girl. So when you focus on the positives get more positive. Kauser is a positive thinker, and she developed many beautiful quotes she is sharing with us today. Some of her links, she is going to share another link with us. We are going to post it later on for your knowledge, to expand your knowledge. As always, our positivity quote comes from positive thinking only and goes: look for something positive each day, even if some days you have to look a little harder. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude, as Maya Angelou said. Today is your day to hack the future. Hack the positivity you want. Thank you, Kauser. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Sounds
Oh,
good. Thank you so much.
thank you. Actually, see you in 2 weeks' time, or see you tomorrow at the conference. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.